Welcome to Becoming Your Healthiest Self. So far we've looked at how nourishment, healthy movement and exercise, unwinding or de-stressing the body, and good quality sleep can affect our health and our metabolic wellness. And today we're going to talk about connection with others, friendship, and love. And of course, when we're talking about self-improvement, we always need to consider patience and compassion with ourselves. We all know intuitively that relationships changes the chemistry of our body, right? We're definitely happier. We feel better when we have positive connection with others. So we've been focusing on health through the lens of metabolic syndrome. And we know that metabolic syndrome is really increased in our country. Only 12% of the population is considered metabolically healthy. And we know the driver of this is the standard American diet, or appropriately named the SAD diet, of these ultra-processed foods with excess sugars, salts, of course, the processed carbohydrates, oils, meats, and fats. So this leads to an increase in insulin levels. We tend to get an increase in belly fat, which implies that there's an increase of fat around our vital organs, in and around our organs. And then an increase in blood pressure and blood lipid levels, right? The lipid levels get backed up, into our bloodstream. Finally, our blood sugar levels begin to rise, and we're told that we're pre-diabetic or diabetic. We know all of these factors contribute to poor health. So what can be done? One, we need to address the diet, that SAD American diet. And then secondly, we need to look at movement and exercise, correct? And also managing stress and sleeping well, very important for reversing metabolic syndrome. And today we're going to focus on friendship, love, and connection with others as a way of helping our health. So I want to share this 5 or 6 minute video here. It's talking about the longitudinal study that was done through Harvard over an 84-year period, looking at the lives of individuals that we know how they died, we know their health, we know the quality of their relationships because it was been studied very closely. So this is the author of the study, one of the authors, and he's going to be talking about this Harvard study.
The world's longest scientific study of happiness is now in its 85th year. Researchers at Harvard have been studying a pool of subjects and their descendants since 1938. The objective? To unlock the age-old question of what makes a good life. Originally, there were 724 participants. 268 were sophomores at Harvard. Their ranks included future President John F. Kennedy and future Washington Post editor Ben Bradley. The study later incorporated a parallel one that was tracking 456 less privileged inner-city Boston boys. Thereafter, the pool was expanded to include 1,300 descendants. They've been tracking these folks for 84 years, and the retention rate for the original participants, an amazing 84%. Every 2 years, the participants answer lengthy questionnaires. Every 5 years, they surrender their medical records. Every 15 years, they are interviewed face-to-face. So what's the life lesson? Good relationships keep us happier, healthier, and help us live longer. There's a new book about the study. It's called The Good Life, Lessons from the World's Longest Scientific Study of Happiness. The authors are Mark Schultz, a clinical psychologist, associate director of the study, and my next guest, Robert Waldinger, a Harvard psychiatrist and director of the Harvard Study of Adult Development. Dr. Waldinger, thank you so much for being here. Physical fitness, we all know about that. That's important, but so often overlooked is what you regard as social fitness. What is that?
It's the finding in our research that people who do the best, who are happiest and healthiest, maintain their relationships. They're active in keeping up their relationships, keeping contact with friends and family and community members.
You say that the folks who at 50 are solid in their relationships are going to be the ones at age 80 who are both physically and mentally most sound. Is it too late? I mean, for some people watching right now who may be older, is it too late to follow your prescription?
It is never too late. Our study shows us that people find friends, they find love when they're sure it's never going to happen for them at all different points of their lives. And a lot depends on whether you are intentional about making and nurturing good relationships.
Your original pool, both sides of the study, white men. How reliable are your findings for people who are not white men?
Well, now we have gender balance. So we brought in spouses, we brought in children, more than half of whom are women. So we have gender balance. And what we do is we make sure that our findings are replicated by other studies of non-white people and by people all over the world. So we are confident that these findings are true for people of all backgrounds.
I had you on my radio program, and callers after you left pointed out my deficiency in not asking about pets and not asking about religion. Address both of those now.
We did not study pets, but there are studies that tell us that the touch of a pet, petting a pet, actually lowers heart rate, calms us down, has a health benefit in that way. With religion, what we found was that religious people weren't happier than non-religious people, and they weren't less happy. But our religious people and people who had spiritual practices said that they found these practices a real comfort in times of stress.
There's a lot of data out there. Jean Twenge comes to mind about the relationship. I'm not sure if she would say causation, but she would definitely say correlation between problems of mental health, anxiety, depression among young Americans and their connectivity. So how does social media factor into this? Because I'm worried that too many young people are behind closed doors, not having the type of interactions that you say are so important.
And it's a big worry right now in our culture. What the research is starting to show us is that it depends on how we use social media. If we actively use social media to connect with other people, that's likely to increase our happiness levels. If we passively consume somebody else's Instagram feeds, somebody else's happy pictures of beaches and parties, that's going to lower our self-esteem. It's going to make us feel like we're missing out on the good life, which isn't the truth.
You know, time and again in the book, you would present parallel tracks, short bios of some of the folks who are in this control group, if that's the right way to say it. The person you might expect to end up with the happiest life, it's often not the case.
Yeah. We found, for example, we had two people who started out as Harvard undergraduates, lives of privilege, all set up to have great lives. One was our happiest man who had a very ordinary career as a wonderful high school teacher, but nothing fancy. And another, a very prominent attorney who worked hard all his life and won lots of awards. And he was one of our least happy people. And the difference between them was the extent to which they paid attention to and took care of the connections they had with family, friends, community.
Dr. Waldinger, before you leave me, give us something everyone watching can do today in line with the findings of your book, The Good Life.
Yeah. Take small actions. It doesn't have to be big. Think of somebody you miss, somebody you'd like to connect with. Just send them a text, send them an email saying, "Hi, I was thinking of you and just wanted to connect." And if you do that regularly with the people in your life who you value, you'll be amazed at the positive emotion and the positive connection that comes back to you.
So this is the book that was referred to in the video about the study called The Good Life. And I recently read this book, and I want to share with you a few quotes from the book that I thought were pertinent. It says, for 84 years and counting, the Harvard study has tracked the same individuals, asking thousands of questions and taking hundreds of measurements to find out what really keeps people healthy and happy. Through all the years of the study, these lives, one crucial factor stands out for the consistency and power of its ties to physical health, mental health, and longevity. Contrary to what many people might think, it's not career achievement or exercise or a healthy diet. Don't get us wrong. These things matter a lot. But one thing consistently demonstrates its broad and enduring importance: good relationships. The book does refer to other similar studies, 7 other studies that have taken place in the United States and around the world that look at people's lives over the long term, and very similar findings have been reported about the importance of human relationship. And in that regard, the book said, all of these studies, as well as our own Harvard study, bear witness to the importance of human connections. They show that people who are more connected to family, to friends, and to community are happier and physically healthier than people who are less connected to family, to friends, and to community. Why do relationships matter so much in our physical health as well as our mental health? Positive interaction tells our bodies that we are safe, reducing our physical arousal and increasing our sense of well-being. By contrast, negative experiences and interactions create a sense that we are in danger and stimulate us to produce stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, which we've talked a lot about before. Loneliness is more pervasive than ever before, and our ancient brains, designed to seek safety in groups, experience these negative feelings as life-threatening, which leads to stress and sickness. So our relationships do matter for our health. So what is the best tool for building these healthy relationships? What tool can we use? Being responsive to the emotions of others. This has been studied. People that have studied this have found that being emotionally responsive to others is the most important factor. The reference is a Time magazine article where they interviewed the researchers. And they say, the most important thing we've learned, the thing that totally stands out, is that the secret to loving relationships and to keeping them strong and vibrant over the years is emotional responsiveness. The way we connect with others emotionally, connect to their emotions, not just writing them off, ignoring them. It's about emotional synchronicity and being tuned into the other person. So what are the ways that we can be more responsive to others, more emotionally responsive? Well, one, smiling is a general sign, right, that we're willing to connect with others. 2, making eye contact. 3, listening with our hearts. Scheduling quality time with our friends, family, and our acquaintances. Actively loving as a verb, right? It's an action, being intentional, as was mentioned in the video, being intentional about building and supporting relationships. Communicate consciously and digging deeper to know ourselves and the effects of our social habits. So we all have social habits that we learned, from our childhood and onward that aren't necessarily the healthiest ways of connecting with others. So evaluating those, right? Keep learning, how can we do better at connecting with others, especially emotionally, and knowing that these habits that we have aren't necessarily us, part of our personality. They're just habits. And being present and focused on the other person we're communicating with. And establishing goes and no-goes, meaning there might be certain topics like politics or the latest gossip or backbiting that we just don't want to hear. And so we need to be honest, and in a kind way, let other people around us know what sort of boundaries we have. And being authentic, so being real with other people. Connecting with others that, what are some practical things we can do? We can have a meal, right? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, friend with family members. We can walk with a friend. I like that one. Can contact someone that we haven't been in touch with lately. Join a hobby group, join a civic organization, pick a class, join a support group, volunteer in the community. Go to meetup.com, although I went and, in my area, there's really not a lot that's mentioned there. And go to a religious or spiritual group meeting. So make having a heart full of loving kindness a personal goal. Here's a quote that I like in that regard. It says, "Do not be content with showing friendship in words alone. Let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path." Let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path. And another one I found intriguing. It says, "If you are so angry, so depressed, so sore that your spirit cannot find deliverance and peace, even in prayer, then quickly go and give some pleasure to someone lowly and sorrowful, to one who has to bear a heavier load than you. And your unhappy mood will dissolve into a blessed, contented submission to God." So our unhappy mood dissolves when we reach out to other people. And I think if we think about it, we can all probably think of experiences where this has been true in our own lives. And these are from the Baha'i writings, but there's similar guidance in other scriptures. Okay, are you ready for the quiz in your final exam? Don't worry. This is very, very easy. So we know that only 12% of the American adults are metabolically healthy. Which of the following is a sign of metabolic syndrome? A, an expanding waistline, which might reflect the amount of fat that's accumulating around our vital organs. B, rising cholesterol levels, high blood pressure, climbing insulin and blood sugar levels. Or E, a fever. So it's true. Fever is not necessarily a sign of metabolic syndrome. What type of food is most associated with poor health and weight gain? Most associated. A, unprocessed natural foods, or B, ultra-processed foods? Definitely B, right? We know that the ultra-processed foods promote weight gain. We tend to eat more. We tend to eat faster when we're eating these foods. So in the top graph, it shows that the people, when they were eating the processed foods, just ate more calories, right? And when they're eating the unprocessed foods, they didn't want to eat that many calories. And the bottom graph shows that eating the ultra-processed foods, people gained weight. And when they ate the unprocessed foods, they lost weight. So the ultra-processed foods definitely are going to be associated with metabolic syndrome, and the unprocessed foods associated with good health. Which foods are the least calorically dense? The least calorically dense. Oils, meats, and cheese, or fruits, veggies, whole grains, and legumes, such as beans and lentils. And so we know that the oils, cheese, and meat are the most calorically dense foods, other than ultra-processed foods, which are also very calorically dense. So our plant-based whole foods are our best bet as far as caloric density. They fill us up, give us good nutrition, and help us to have a normal, healthy body weight. What type of foods cause oxidative stress and inflammation in the body? Okay, another easy one. A, antioxidants, or B, the oxidants. So the foods that cause oxidative stress and inflammation are definitely foods that look like this. And places where you can get them are these. And the snack items you'd eat look like this. And of course, the antioxidants are the foods that help to decrease inflammation in our bodies. And they tend to look like this. And the snack items tend to look like this. So the oxidants clog up our systems and promote metabolic syndrome. And the antioxidants help to clear up our systems and promote good health. Why don't sumo wrestlers have metabolic syndrome? Their benefits package includes deep tissue massage and weekly manicures. Or B, they exercise 4 to 5 hours per day and eat mostly unprocessed foods, albeit a lot of it, right? It's around 7,000 calories when 2,000 to 2,500 is the typical amount that adults consume. What healthy lifestyle habit is most important for maintaining functional capacity and avoiding disability later in life? A, eating a healthy diet. I suppose it's important, yeah. Sleeping 7-8 hours, right? Well, that might help. Maintaining healthy relationships, maybe. Or D, staying physically active and having regular exercise. And of course, the answer is D. So we know this from studies that have been done and advice from the World Health Organization. This graph shows, the blue line that as we exercise throughout our lives, we're most likely to have good function later in life and to stay above that threshold of disability where we need help from others and we need assistive devices and these sort of things. What is a stress hormone that's most associated with metabolic syndrome? A, cortisol, or B, geritol. For those of you who don't know about geritol, that was like this elixir that was popular, in the 60s and 70s, maybe the 80s, that had a bunch of iron in it and tended to cause constipation. At any rate, so high cortisol levels are associated with increases in blood pressure, increases in blood sugar and lipid levels, and belly fat, right? So sometimes it's called stress belly. When we have a lot of stress, the cortisol tends to promote the kind of fat accumulation that's the worst when it's accumulating around our vital organs. And this diagram shows the adrenal glands that might be spitting out too much cortisol and causing metabolic syndrome. So stress relief and having healthy ways to control stress, such as exercise, are important. And poor sleep. Poor sleep is associated with metabolic syndrome. What is considered the most important factor to help improve sleep quality and quantity? A, counting sheep, or B, a regular bedtime and rise time? And the answer is B, of course. And according to the Harvard longitudinal study that we discussed today, what is the number one predictor of a happier, healthier life? A, frequenting McDonald's since you deserve a break today. B, staying seated for long periods of time, right? Because rest and relaxation is healthy for us. Or C, striving to form and maintain healthy relationships, right? Being intentional about it. And of course, our answer is C, healthy relationships. So in conclusion, becoming our healthiest selves involves a process and a daily process of loving well, of eating well, of moving well, sleeping well, and stressing less.